Yeah, it's the next day after the race. As you can tell, we had a little fire at the car, but not sure what we're gonna find until we get it out of the trailer. But got a lot of cleaning up before that happens. We must have went through a bug storm last night, because the whole truck is covered. The front of the truck is covered, so we got to get all that stuff cleaned up before we take a look at the car. So let's get started. Okay, got the bugs off the front. Car is actually in a shop, kind of crooked, but yeah, you can, yucky, if you can see that or not, but from the powder from the fire extinguisher. Yeah, so next task is to kind of pull it out here and find what caused this fire. So anyway, pieces off the car, got a light in here so we can actually start to see what's going on. That's the connector that literally melted. It melted right here, so that tells me maybe originated here and went that way. So I'm gonna have to look at this a little bit closer. Maybe it's the connector, I don't know. What we're finding, this fuse right here is burnt to a crisp inside. Not sure if that just literally shorted and melted together and caused the fuse not to pop. This fuse actually goes to the fan, I think. So I'm going to have to trace that wire out all the way back that way and see what shorted out. Better yet, why did it do what it did? So we're making progress to figure out what caused it, or trying to figure out what caused it. So yeah, it's a mess in here. So next task is try to get a ohm meter from here to the, what we're thinking is the motor for the fan.
Water pump.
Yeah, water pump. I'm sorry. Yeah, water pump, and see if that's where it goes to, or if if it's shorted out. So that comes up next. I don't know. This fuse, I know it welded itself back together after it popped. Quick update. These 3 wires we tested, they do run. Like I said, there's four devices, if you want to call them devices. But we have basically the water pump, the vacuum pump, the fan, and the fuel pump. All of them work. So I'm really confused. The water pump, what I can tell, fuse, because it goes up to my water pump relay, up here. So that popped, but when it popped, it actually bonded the fuse together, which is weird. It's supposed to open up and it didn't. So I'm kind of confused on that. So I'm really confused of what's going on. The other thing we found was a strange wire hanging here, and it's totally gone. This is actually a ground wire to this door sensor. I didn't know it was even still there. I don't know if that jumped over and got into the connector somehow. I really don't know. So wiring wise, I think we might have been undersized on the wire for the I don't know. They look 12 gauge. I just have to verify them. But I don't think we're undersized too much. If anything, the fans might be undersized a little bit. They draw the most. Those fans needs at least a 20 amp to run. The other ones needs at least 15 amp to run. So might have to revisit that. Got the board out. I mean, it's all removable, so you can tell all the connectors on it. So going to start replacing some wires with a little bit bigger wires, just to make sure I didn't exceed the capacity on the wires, and go from there. So next thing to do is start replacing some of these power wires over here. Okay, I got the wiring replaced, got a new connector installed on this end. This replaces this. All of it's with a 12 gauge wire. I replaced only 2 wires for the output. So coming from here and here, this is all 12 gauge wire. This is controlling my fan and my fuel pump. So this is all 12 gauge wiring now, all the way from the fuse up through the relays out to the connector. Then what goes on the other side is another connector where this is actually where it burned at. So I'm going to find the fuel pump and fan wire over here. Those are going to get replaced with 12 gauge wires directly to the fans and to the fuel pump. Okay, it's been several days since we got the board reworked and added the bigger wire to it and all that stuff. So I think all we have to do is install the board and get things plugged in and test everything. Then we're going to do a current draw test on each circuit to see how much amperage each of the circuit is drawing. Then we'll probably do an overall current draw. So I'm going to turn everything on that you typically would have on going down the track at nights, coming back the return road. So you get the lights on, tail lights on, all that good stuff. Just see what the overall current draw is on the car. So I'll show you what meter I'm going to use for that. So anyway, with that, let's go ahead and let's get this board installed, and cross fingers everything works. Then we'll start doing some current draw tests. Then eventually we'll get it all cleaned up so we won't have any of the powdered from the fire extinguisher. What a mess. But anyway, let's get started. Okay, next what we're going to do, well, let me go show you. The board's all installed, got everything connected up, replace some of the fuses, and the next thing we can do is check how much draw is on each circuit so I can properly fuse that circuit. Okay, so if a circuit is drawing 5 amps, no sense putting a 30 amp fuse in it, right? So anyway, we're just going to properly size that circuit. But in order to properly size that, I have to know how much draw. And so if you don't know how much say your electric fan draws, you don't have the power draw or the sheet that came with it tells you how much power draw, you can only measure the current draw. And how you're going to do that, or how I'm going to do that, went out and purchased a meter that actually shows how much current draw that is going to be on the power. So and it's one of these clamp-ons. So, and what you do is basically clamp it on the power lead. This is the power that's going into the board. Okay, and this will show how much current draw there is. Now, I'm not going to do the current draw on the coil, or not the coil, the current draw on the starter or any of that. It has a dedicated power going all the way from the battery right up to the starter. This is just power draw that's from my board. So that's like your lights, your fans, fuel pump, any of that stuff. That's what comes out of this board here. So anyway, let me go ahead and give you an example, and I'll turn some switches on and I'll show you how much these things draw. So, okay, if I turn the fuel pump on, hopefully this is a fuel pump. Yep. It's drawing about 6.5 amps. Then if I turn on the, what is this one? That's the water pump. That's drawing about 4.5, 5 amps. Then this is the electric vacuum pump. It's drawing lower 15 amps. There we go, 15 amps. We got normal headlights and they draw 8.5, 8.3. Tail lights, we got lower 3 amps. The ignition circuit, about 2 amps. I was going to do a test on that. Okay, Yep, 2 amps. Then turn that off. Then that's the fan. That's drawing about 16 amps or so, 17. It surges pretty high, then it gets going, so. There it is, 54 amps. Yeah. Okay, that's 54 amps of current drawing through that board, okay? Truthfully, I thought it was gonna be a lot lower. So I don't know what I was thinking, but that gives you some idea of how much amperage actually goes through this board. Now that's with everything turned on. Chances are of us having everything turned at any given time, probably slim to none. So, but in case you need to have everything on, that's how much draw it is on this board. So anyway, okay, I know what some people are saying, that the wires that I have here are undersized. It's too small, too big, and you know what? You're probably correct to a certain degree. What happened to it? There we go. What are we going to do is, I have 2 circuits here. I have a 12-volt circuit and I have a 16-volt circuit, okay? 12-volt circuit, I'm not exceeding the capacity. The 16 volts, I'm right at capacity. So this is what's going to happen, and I'll kind of explain everything else. I actually wrote down how much amperage everything is drawing on what circuit and all that stuff. On my 12-volt circuit, which is the smaller 10-gauge wire, it's only drawing 17 amps through a 10-gauge wire, which 10-gauge is rated for about 30 amps, 30, 32. This is a 8-gauge wire. This is rated for 46 amps, okay? I am drawing 46 amps, just a little over 46 amps for my 16 volts. So yes, I am at the capacity for this. And as you can tell on here, it gets next back down to, guess what? That's right, back down to a 10-gauge. So this is what's going to happen. The 8-gauge is going to get replaced with a 6. 6 is guaranteed, or not guaranteed, 6 is good up for 65 amps. So I'm going to change just to a 6-gauge. The 16-volt circuit here, this is going to get changed to a 6-gauge as well. So that should satisfy all my amperage requirements. Okay, now we're going to get into what could have caused this, and I got a good theory. Not too sure. It's a theory. We're still not certain exactly, you know, what really burned up or what caused it to short out, because everything works. So let me get in that here in a second. Okay, what we do know is there were definitely some type of electrical short. That's a given. Personally, what I think happened over time, we were undersized on a circuit, and that was my vacuum pump circuit. We were right at a 14-gauge wire run to that. 14 gauge is only good for 16 amps. It was drawing 16 amps, so we were right at that capacity all the time. So this is what I'm thinking that's happened. There was a wire from this guy here still laying back there. It's a ground wire. And what I'm thinking that happened, the connector that was supplying all that current and all that stuff to that, I think over time that wire the sheeting started to deteriorate because it's pulling too much current through it. I think what happened is it got down, it touched the ground wire, went through that ground wire, then it had a direct path to power. We had a fuse that popped, but guess what? The fuse did not pop. It actually fused together. So then it had all the current draw it needed to start a fire. So it's just acting like a electric element, heating element. So as that started superheating up, that's what caused the thing to catch on fire. The wire caught on fire, and any of the rubber that was kind of around in here, it started to catch on fire as well. But like I said, this is nothing more than a theory what could have happened. So it's just a bad circumstance of a bunch of different things. Some of it was definitely my fault because I didn't have the wire size properly, so I'll take blame. So, but rest assured, now with what we have for the current draw. Now we can size, not only we can size the wire properly, we can size the fuse properly. So I know when we go back out on the track, this thing will be, perfect, as in the type of fuse, the type wire. We should not have this issue again in the future. So for those do-it-yourselfers, wire your own type of car and stuff, just take notice of your size of the wire and the size of fuses that you're going to be using and all that good stuff. So, and if you're really unsure, get a meter like I showed you down, in the video here, of the so you can really test what that device is drawing, especially if you don't have the documentation to any of that stuff, so you know exactly what the current draw is. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. I am done with this project for now. Next time, hopefully see you at the track. Not sure if I'm going to be at racing this coming weekend or not. Has some other chores I need to get done around the house and stuff. The weather is changing. We are springing, you want to say, we're falling back into winter. Maybe that's a good way to put it. It is going to get cooler as the next few races that we compete at. It will be much cooler, so I'm looking forward to the cooler temperature. So with that, man, do appreciate watching this video. If you like it, hit the thumbs up. If you got any questions, leave it down there and I'll try to answer those questions. But hope you got something out of this video and stuff. With that, until next time. That'll work.